The news is in, and the ketogenic diet is not heart healthy. There's been a new study that's had a lot of media attention, partly because of the fact that it was done by some pro-keto researchers who tried to hide their findings, didn't report their primary outcomes. And so many critics called upon them to actually give us the data, and it doesn't look great for the ketogenic diet. So this study took 100 supposedly healthy ketogenic followers, and it measured them over the period of a year, looked at their LDL cholesterol, and their progression of plaque within their arteries. Now, it was interesting in this study because they used a special AI measuring tool called Clearly to get really accurate measurements, and it looked at the development of plaque, not only solid plaque, but soft plaque within the artery, because soft plaque is more likely to break off and form a blood clot, a heart attack, or a stroke. So it took them a long time to get their 100 participants because it was actually quite hard for them to find people who were healthy and they needed to have high HDL cholesterol, which is good cholesterol, low triglycerides, and they had to have high LDL cholesterol, which is classically seen in ketogenic diets and the carnivore diet. Now, LDL is, of course, the bad cholesterol, and the question has been asked over the years around the ketogenic diet as to whether if you are slim and otherwise healthy, are you somehow protected despite having high LDL cholesterol? And this is one of the things that this study looked to investigate. So it was an observational study, just this one group of people, no control group. We didn't have a sample of ordinary people who weren't on the ketogenic diet. We didn't have a sample of people who were new to the ketogenic diet. So what we can draw from this is quite speculative, but the results are very telling. So the participants in this study all had extremely high LDL cholesterol, that's the bad cholesterol, around the 100th percentile, and they also measured their ApoB, which is a predictor of atherosclerosis as well, and this was also in the 100th percentile. The researchers published that they didn't find any significant association between LDL cholesterol or ApoB and plaque progression. This is misleading because this wasn't really the question that they had set out to answer. The researchers also compared the data on plaque progression over that 1 year to some other studies with other control groups, since they didn't have a control group available to them. Now, this was problematic because these control groups were samples of people on the standard American diet, many of whom may have been obese, some of them had high blood pressure, some of them had diabetes, so they weren't really representative of a similarly health-conscious population. Now, the researchers claimed that the plaque progression was comparable to these populations, these other control groups, but many critics have pointed out that these weren't the appropriate control groups to compare them to. The researchers were also called out on social media and asked to provide the actual number on the average plaque progression over that year. And the number in millimeters cubed was 18.8. Researcher Alex Leaf pointed out in his critique that there was another study authored by one of the same researchers, Dr. Matthew Budoff, in which they looked at plaque progression in a group of type 2 diabetes patients. And they had a plaque progression over the course of 1 year of 17.4 millimeters cubed. So this group of so-called healthy keto followers was comparable to a high-risk group of people who have type 2 diabetes. In the same critique, Alex Leaf also pointed out that another study, the SMART Tool project, which enrolled people with various risk factors like smoking, obesity, diabetes, hypertension, and so on, they saw an annual soft plaque progression of 6.4 millimeters cubed, and the people who were on statins saw just 1 millimeter cubed over the year. So compared to this seemingly typical group of individuals who weren't particularly metabolically healthy, our lean keto followers had a plaque progression that was 3 times as fast. This is really concerning. Another critic, Gil Carvalho, pointed out that there was another study done by, again, one of the same researchers, Dr. Matthew Budoff, which is called the Nature CT study, and they used the same AI technology to measure the plaque. And they had a relatively healthy group of people who had no diabetes and weren't on any statins, and their average plaque progression over the year was 4.9 millimeters cubed. So comparing that to the 18.8 by the keto group, you can see that this is really concerning. So there's been this story often been told within the keto community that saturated fat isn't that bad, and that actually it's carbs that are the problem, and this is all a conspiracy. But that just doesn't hold up in the data. So perhaps the reason why people have seen benefits on the ketogenic diet is that they're cutting out a lot of processed food. You can't eat processed food and you can't eat sugar on keto, which is great. But it doesn't mean that it is the ideal diet, nor that it is safe and optimal. So please, if you know anyone who is following keto, please share this knowledge with them. So as always, thank you for listening, and please do comment below and tell me what you think. I think this is really important information and it does need to get shared widely. So if you can help me do that, then I really appreciate it. Stay well.